Hi everyone, this is Emily Graziano, and today I'm here to talk about my Unpopular Film Opinions Volume 2. I got a really surprisingly and welcomed positive response to the first one I did, and I can't thank you enough for that, because some people do not want to hear me listen to my film opinions. I don't know, I don't really think I'm that interesting, but maybe if you'd like to watch this video, I will hopefully make it worth your while, because in the first video I did, I talked about a lot of popular films that are well-liked that I personally did not like, and in this one I'm going to flip the switch, two sides of the coin here, and I'm going to do a lot of unpopular or dividing films that I personally do like. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is Disney's Pocahontas. I mentioned in the first video that I am not a fan of Aladdin. I'm just not. I love the music, but I don't really like Aladdin watching. I will not like sit down to watch Aladdin in my own free time. To me, it's background. Like if I'm just sitting scrapbooking and it's on TV, I can keep it on, but am I gonna pay attention to it? Not really. I mentioned that I love Pocahontas, and I'm gonna talk about why. I understand why people do not like Pocahontas. The villain, for one, is not extremely dimensional. He's not like a Gaston. It's not the Governor Radcliffe. He's not a Ursula. He's not a Cruella de Vil. He's not any of those iconic Disney villains. I understand some of the seriously just uneven plot points. The song Mine, Mine, Dig Up Virginia, that's a very, very boring song. I understand that. And of course, what comes under a lot of scrutiny is the love story between Pocahontas and John Smith. She married John Rolfe in real life. John Smith was years older than her, to the point where a love story couldn't even be possible just due to that fact alone. Some of the sadness that people get when they watch it due to the whole Savages song alone, it can be kind of just bad. But I personally think Pocahontas is a very, very John Ford-esque movie in an animated way. It deals with a lot of the same themes as a John Ford film, right down to the whole when the legend becomes fact, print the legend aspect about Pocahontas, the Disney version, that is, because did Pocahontas really save John Smith's life? Well, maybe not. There's some evidence pointing that she might have, but it's never actually been a proven fact, and that is entirely John Ford. It's just the whole, well, the legend is more interesting, so we're gonna go with the legend as fact. That is entirely John Ford right there. And even going on with John Ford, the similarities, the animated backgrounds, entirely gorgeous, very John Ford. It's just beautiful. And the whole sequence when Pocahontas and John Smith meet at the waterfall, where it's really reliant on just watching. It's almost like a silent movie. It's a silent scene, just background. That is entirely John Ford. There's minimal dialogue involved, and that to me is a John Ford scene right there, right down to the backgrounds and the gorgeous landscape of the waterfall and them two meeting. It's entirely John Ford. It's almost like in The Quiet Man when Sean and Mary-Kate meet and he looks over the hill at her, and it's basically minimal dialogue. It's just gorgeous. That to me was just gorgeous. And I will say it, I personally do not like Mel Gibson. I don't, but his voice is a very, very listenable voice. He has a great voice, and that's the only good thing about him. And he just makes John Smith, with his voice, really, really, really a character that I personally like. I don't know, I do. He's Australian, by the way, so maybe that's why I like his voice. Anyway, But yeah, but Pocahontas, it does have its flaws. I'm not saying it's a great movie, but it is a very, very solid film that I personally like. And if you don't understand how Pocahontas as a character really connected with the earth and the acceptance of other cultures and cultural diffusion and learning to get along with what is perceived to be a traditional enemy, then I just wish more people would see it that way. So I do like Pocahontas. And that went on for a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I'm going to mention some other films. The next film that is kind of not liked by a lot of people. Oh no, I think it's a very polarizing film amongst film fans is John Ford's The Horse Soldiers. Personally, I love The Horse Soldiers. Again, this is not top tier John Ford. It's not. In fact, John Ford personally didn't even like this film because during the river crossing scene, 2 of the stuntmen died. And he didn't even care about finishing the ending of the film. They had this whole, like, grand parade sequence at the end of the film, and they were going to reconcile John Wayne and William Holden's characters at the bar. Of course, it's a Ford film, come on. But once the accident and the stuntmen passed away during the river crossing scene, he just didn't care about finishing the film. He didn't even want to go on with the film, but they had already filmed too much to shut it down. So that is why it probably suffers with story, but I love this movie. It's John Wayne, William Holden. Again, John Wayne proves he's an actor because he kind of plays a slightly unlikable but likable character. William Holden is just amazing in this film. He's just amazing. I love William Holden. He plays the doctor. And believe me, this is not bottom of the barrel John Ford. This is maybe second tier B material from John Ford. Believe me, I've seen some of John Ford's C-list and D-list material. This is not the bottom of the barrel for John Ford. And if you don't believe me, just watch his 1936 film, Mary of Scotland, or 1934's The Whole Town's Talking. No, they didn't work for me personally. They're very infuriating films, but The Horse Soldiers is it's a very, I would say it's even more than solid. It's a good film. It's not great, but it's good. It's really, really good. I love it. I love the theme, the opening theme. I just really have a lot of love for this film, and I wish other people did too. Moving on, the next film that I want to talk about that a lot of people do not like, I've read a lot of criticism against this movie, is Inside Daisy Clover with Natalie Wood, Robert Redford, and Christopher Plummer. I'll be honest, the first time I saw this film, I didn't like it. I was expecting something different, but just because I didn't get what I expected doesn't mean it's bad. The chemistry between Natalie Wood and Robert Redford, even though Robert Redford's character is kind of not faithful and he's a total playboy, they are just magical. I do prefer This Property is Condemned, but that doesn't mean I don't not like this film. This is a better film on Natalie Wood's filmography, actually, and there are so many elements present in this film that are relevant to her life. The whole thing of going to Hollywood and struggling to keep a career even though now you're older, because the whole thing is, she's discovered when she's, 15, and by 17 she's a has-been. That kind of was always a threat towards Natalie Wood because she was no longer a child and she had to kind of forge a new career as a young adult and adult. But I absolutely like this film. It is kind of long, the pacing isn't, it has some issues, but the fact Robert Redford and Natalie Wood are in it, Christopher Plummer is in it, the cast is just great, has some great on-location scenery of the Santa Monica Pier. I really, really have a lot of love for this movie. I do. And Robert Redford and Natalie Wood are magical on screen. I wish they would have done more movies together. That's just that. And this kind of introduced me to Robert Redford, and in my opinion, Robert Redford is the last great American leading man this country ever has seen. There are some great leading men out there, but they're just British, Australian, Canadian, Welsh, Scottish. So, but Robert Redford, to me, the last great American leading man. So I have a lot of love for this film. Next, a lot of people do like this movie, but a lot of people do not like this movie. I think it's very polarizing in some of the reviews I've read on IMDb. But, Sunday in New York with Jane Fonda and Rod Taylor, Cliff Robertson, and Robert Culp. I enjoy this film. I really, really do. I'm not a huge fan of Jane Fonda, but this is before she was a real political activist and started letting her politics affect her roles that she chooses very early in her career. I really have a lot of love for this movie. I do. I just do. It's funny, and some of it is a little bit hokey, but it's a cute type of hokiness. It's not a cringy hokiness. It's really cute. I thought that it was very stylistic. I love the 60s fashion. Rod Taylor is just so handsome in this movie. He's Australian, by the way. He has a great voice. Rod Taylor is just so delightful. It's funny, and the apartment setup is very, very enviable. I adored the apartment setup. I'm like, man, everything from the staircase to the loft to the bedroom and then the downstairs, it's just really, really cool. People may say the material is dated, but I think it's dated in the best way possible. But if you haven't ever seen it, it was recently on TCM. The next time they show it, I think it was so cute. And Cliff Robertson plays Jane Fonda's brother, and he kind of has this funny storyline of he wants to hang out with his girlfriend, but he has to go. He's a pilot and he has flight call, and he puts his girlfriend on the flight. Or no, his girlfriend gets on the flight at the last minute, but he gets out of the flight at the last minute, getting someone else to take over for him. And it's kind of funny when he goes out and he tries to stop the plane. It's like, oh yeah, you're not going to stop that plane. But the reason why he's doing it is really funny. It's just, I really love this movie. It may be fluff, but it's fun fluff. It's just a fun movie from 1963. And the last movie I'm going to talk about is from 1947, Daisy Kenyon. This is my favorite Joan Crawford movie, and I don't like Joan Crawford. I just don't. I don't like Bette Davis that much either, if that means anything. But this, like I said, I like this better than Mildred Pierce. I think this is one of the most complex love triangles on the screen, because you could really picture her with either Henry Fonda or Dana Andrews. And it has a lot of post-war sentiment. This is because this is 1947. This is one of Henry Fonda's first films coming out of World War II. Of course, the first one was My Darling Clementine, but this is he's still fresh from war. Dana Andrews actually receives billing over Henry Fonda because he became a bigger star in those war years when Henry Fonda was not there. So he kind of rose to prominence, of course, being famous for the role in Laura, which is one of my favorite movies ever. But it has a lot of, it's not just the love triangle between these three. There's a lot of kind of taboo subjects mentioned, like, Dana Andrews, his character is married, and their daughter kind of has a really, really rough relationship with her mother, and that's interesting. And actually, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I just find it really, really complex, the story. It may not seem complex, but it is, and it deals with a lot of just interesting themes that you wouldn't even think would be present in a film like this. It's actually slightly film noirish in a certain type of way. So it's almost like Mildred Pierce in the sense that it is kind of a domestic story. But I don't know, it's an unusual blend of topics, but it's just really fascinating. And the late great Robert Osborne hosted TCM, primary hosted TCM. He really had a lot of appreciation for this film, as evident on the bonus features, and the fact that I see what he saw in this film, I think is just really cool, because that means that I can be on the same level as one of the most revered film critics of all time. So, man, now I really want to rewatch this movie, because it has been a little while since I've seen it. But directed by the great Otto Preminger, of course, who did Laura. But really, I should recheck. Now I've convinced myself to check out this movie again. But really, really interesting blend, great cast, and you really find yourself thinking, well, which man should she be with? Did she make the right choice? Because I can really see her with either of these men. And the interesting part is both of these men are equally good for her as they are equally bad for her, which makes it even more complex. So very, very interesting film right here, Daisy Kenyon. And this went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And if you'd like to see a part 3 of more of my unpopular film opinions in general, just leave me a comment below and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching this video. I'm Emily Graziano. Bye-bye and thank you. I'll see you in the next one.